But one more chapter. Look at 11:24. And I'm just going to briefly talk about this one because this one is fascinating to me. Because as a pastor, it's fascinating who God picks to be a pastor and the qualities in their life. In Acts 11:24, Barnabas is introduced to us. The Spirit of God praises this quality in Barnabas. Verse 24, it says, "For he was a good man." The Holy Spirit is praising him. And he says he was a good man. And he was full of the Holy Spirit and was full of faith. That's in 6:5 describing Stephen. But the addition the Holy Spirit adds is he was a good man. He had a simple life of kindness. For just a moment, think about Barnabas. Barnabas was sent from Jerusalem to pastor the great missionary church at Antioch. We know from Acts that Barnabas was a Hellenistic Jew. He was born and raised in Cyprus. He wasn't from Jerusalem. He was from the Greco-Roman world. He had been watched by the church at Jerusalem. They deeply respected him for his godliness and generosity. If you remember, when there was a great need, he sold his property on Cyprus and gave the money to the apostles. He was a very generous person. Barnabas was also an encourager. He could be described as cheerful, big-hearted, and loving. He was the perfect choice for a pastor that was needed. The church looked at, the church of Jerusalem, the mother church, as it were, of the faith, looked out at this mushrooming Gentile church in Antioch, and they said, we've got to send out a pastor for that assembly. They're just growing so fast. They need to be shepherded and pastored. And so they thought of Barnabas. Now, look at verse 23, because when he arrived, so Barnabas has sent out this generous, big-hearted, encouraging man, this one who had brought along the Apostle Paul, this one who had done great and mighty things for the Lord there. They sent him out to Antioch. Back up to verse 23. When he arrived and saw the evidence of the grace of God, he was glad and encouraged them all to remain true to the Lord with all their hearts. Isn't that fascinating what Luke records? Barnabas was sent from Jerusalem and had eyes to see the evidence of the grace of God. Now I want you to think about this, because this man has this word we're looking at, this grace-energized kindness. Do you know what grace-energized kindness does to an individual? It changes how they look at life. Barnabas is a crucial character in the New Testament. He is the first pastor of a Gentile church we see in the book of Acts. Remember, James is a pastor of the church in Jerusalem. Barnabas is the first pastor we know of. Now, Philip was an evangelist, church planter. But Barnabas is the first Gentile pastor that's profiled in the Scriptures. A pastor to a people steeped in sin, filled with paganism, and that didn't have a biblical background to their culture. Remember, the Jewish church, those people, they knew all this stuff, whether they believed it or not, because they were raised in it. They were Jewish. And the Old Testament was just their lifestyle. This is the first time non-biblically oriented people are in a church. So they send Barnabas. And that's who they sent. And what's amazing is, what we see in this verse is Barnabas saw past the exterior. See, a grace-energized kindness causes you to look beyond the external, what they look like. And look, as he says here, he saw evidence of the grace of God, verse 23. Now, Barnabas could have easily seen the situation in a different light. These people were new. They were untaught Christians. Remember, they sent him to teach them. These people had just gotten saved. They were caught up in the excitement of the moment, and they had just received forgiveness of their sins, but they were new. They were untaught. They still carried the mire of Antioch with them. Some of them had miles to go in their language, in their relationship, in their ethics. But Barnabas, verse 23, saw the evidence of the grace of God. He could see Christian grace and charm in their lives, the fruit of the Spirit. He saw love, joy, and peace. And he was glad, it says. So what did he do? He simply encouraged them all to remain true to the Lord with all their hearts, to meditate on him, and to make him everything. Isn't that a summary of his ministry that he had to them? In this way, Barnabas helped them focus on what would cleanse them of the defilement of Antioch. His advice is appropriate to all Christians, whether in the beginning stages or well along the path. As the great preacher McLaren once warned, many of us are so busy thinking about Christianity, we've lost our hold of Christ. He was encouraging them to just hold on to Jesus Christ himself. That's what an encourager does. Barnabas saw grace, rejoiced, and then tenderly encouraged God's people. How was he able to do that? Because the refreshing water of the Holy Spirit flowed from Barnabas' innermost being. Can you think of anyone like that? Why not be a person like that? That's what God's asking. Why not be a person that sees life with grace-energized kindness? It's what he's asking. The goodness and fullness of the Holy Spirit and faith seen in Barnabas began to reproduce. Look at the end of verse 24. It says, and a great number of people were brought to the Lord. Amazing. And that's the type of man God picked. And what's so amazing is Barnabas was a renowned teacher and a discipler, but his personal life was characterized by being loving and gentle and generous and a great encourager. That's because he had grace-energized kindness.